Hello once again, watchers of good movies. My name is Nick Pell, and this is my list of the top 10 movies, per my opinion, of 2019. As is kind of a given, this is a list that is made up of my favorite films as well as what I consider to be some of the best films of 2019. It's very subjective, and I definitely did not see everything this year. There's two films out right now that are supposed to be really good that I just don't have a chance to see yet because they're not in Minnesota. 1917 and Just Mercy. I want to see them, I can't right now. So without any further ado, let's get started. Coming in at number 10 is a film which just barely squeaked in at the last minute, and that is Little Women. I just recently reviewed this film yesterday, and I really enjoyed it. As a result, it's one of my top 10 films of the year, obviously. If you're not aware, it focuses on four women, sisters, who are basically going from the innocence of childhood and merging into kind of what they want to do with their lives and exploring the adult world, following their own unique passions and seeing where that leads them in regards to both their passions as well as love and things intermingling between those things. All that performance is really good. Greta Gerwig does a really good job directing this film, and it's just one that I had a very fun time watching. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes long, and it just flew by, which I think is a sign of a great film in general, when you can be so absorbed into it that it just flies by in a second. So yeah, Little Women. If you haven't checked it out, definitely go see it. Number 9 is Jordan Peele's second directorial debut film, and that is Us. If you're not aware, this film focuses on a family who is eventually pursued by another family of doppelgangers who look very much like them, but they have this more dark and sinister tone to them, and it has this big mystery and murdery thing which ends up happening as you kind of figure out where they're coming from, and just the origins surrounding them. It has a very fun twist towards the end, and I think Jordan Peele does a really good job directing this. He's a very big horror standout now, with both Get Out and Us, and I really had a fun time with this film. It has a couple issues here or there, but in general, it's a very fun time, and well worth your time to check it out if you are a horror fan or if you're a fan of his works in general. Number 8 goes to How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. This is the third installment in the How to Train Your Dragon film franchise and its finale, pretty much. It once again follows our heroes Hiccup and Toothless, as Hiccup is now the leader of his tribe and the dragons are fully integrated into their society. And of course we have an evil entity which comes along to try to hunt down the last of the Night Furies, which is what Toothless is as a dragon, and eventually they have to kind of decide if it's worth keeping the dragons around, if it's more sensible to set them free, or to kind of fight for their survival and the integration. And so it has a very moving story. It brought me to tears more than once, and it's a film franchise which I didn't really watch initially when the first one came out, and then I watched it. I loved it. I really loved the second one, and now I love the third one. So yeah, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. If you're a fan of the franchise, you've probably already seen it, but it's well worth your time to check out this film trilogy, because it's really good. Number 7 comes from the mind of Shia LaBeouf, and that is Honey Boy. This is a semi-autographical film which focuses on a young film actor, his life living with his father, and his father is played by Shia LaBeouf, and it's based around his life as a young actor during that time. We also get to see flash forwards to him played by Lucas Hedges, or the child actor played by Lucas Hedges, and seeing with him dealing with the aftermath of his upbringing, with getting into drugs and alcohol and having PTSD from the way that his father treated him at times. And it's a very interesting and emotional story to see played out, because I have to assume that a lot of it is kind of the draw for it is based around actual events that Shia LaBeouf dealt with, and knowing kind of what his place in society, I guess you could say, or like how he's been perceived in the last 5 years or so. It kind of explains a little bit of it if a lot of this is actually accurate. And so I found it to be a very fun movie, a very deep and moving story, and one that's very touching as well, and has a very interesting ending, I guess you could say. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Coming in at number 6 is a comedy set during World War II, and that is Jojo Rabbit. This film follows a young child who is a member of the Hitler Youth during the events of World War II in Germany, and it's kind of an interesting dilemma for the film because it is a satire, it's a comedy, it's making fun somewhat of this situation. And at the same time, it's a very emotional film because it shows the effects of fearmonger and what it can do on impressionable minds, especially young children, and then also showing kind of the opposite of that in him being open to learning about this young Jewish girl that he finds hiding in his house, and them developing a close relationship. And so it's a very funny movie, but also a very emotional movie, and I think it's a kind of somewhat of an important one for this time period that we're in right now. So yeah, Jojo Rabbit, it's a very good movie, so check it out if you haven't already. We're now in the top 5 of the year, per my opinion, and in number 5 is Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is the 9th film from Quentin Tarantino. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie and focuses around the Sharon Tate killing by the Manson family. And while it doesn't necessarily center around that, it is a long build-up to that point. And while it's building up to that point, we get to see the characters that Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt play fleshed out, and you have some very tense moments, especially with Brad Pitt's character, and you have some extremely comedic moments with Leonardo DiCaprio's character, as he's kind of this wilting actor, and Brad Pitt is kind of this guy who's his stunt double, but also kind of just doing his own thing and trying to investigate more or less what is happening with this family. And it's fantastic in my opinion. It's a really good movie. It's very, like I said, tension filled. There were a couple times where I thought Brad Pitt was just going to bite it, and I was very nervous and very scared. But it's very well acted, very well made, very funny, and it's out now. So definitely check this thing out if you're interested at all, because I really like Quentin Tarantino's movies in general. He's had a few that I'm kind of more or less lukewarm on, but generally I really enjoyed it. And you might not think that there's blood in this movie, but wait till the end. There's blood. Coming in at number 4 is one of my most anticipated films of this year, and one that I cannot stop singing the songs to in my car when I'm driving to and from. So that is Frozen 2. As I mentioned in my Frozen 2 review, I'm a big fan of the Frozen franchise, or at least the 2 films that are out currently, along with the short films. I really love the music, and I thought that this second installment was a really well done way to continue the story overall, because the film starts out after, like, I think 3 years after the events of the first one, and while Elsa now has control over her abilities and does not fear them anymore, she still feels out of place and doesn't really know what her ultimate role in the world is, or where she's really meant to be. And so it explores that, kind of dives into more of a nature-y area, and has some fantastic animations, and has some really dark moments as well, which particularly with Anna, which one thing which I really love about the franchise in general, both Frozen and Frozen 2, is that they really are not afraid to dive into those dark moments. And so that was something which I really enjoyed as well. Again, songs are fantastic, and the relationship between the 2 sisters continues to develop, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed Frozen 2, and I really want to see it again when it's not ice outside my window. Coming in at number 3 is Avengers Endgame. This is the conclusion to 3 phases of the MCU, and yeah, it's really good. It ends this big, massive Infinity Saga in the most satisfying of ways, because after the events of Infinity War, where you have the Avengers just broken and beaten and half the population of Earth just wiped out, you see them have to come back together and find a way to defeat Thanos, even though basically there's no real hope left until a certain time travel thing comes to light. The end scene of the film, where you have all the Avengers and all the heroes lined up on the battlefield facing off against Thanos and his army of creatures and monsters, is just one of the best scenes in cinema. The music is fantastic, and yeah, there were multiple times during that scene that I was literally weeping out of joy because of how awesome it was seen on screen. Just many, many moments throughout the course of this film were just, they were fan service, I will admit that, but they were very satisfying fan service, because we got to see, once again, all these heroes fighting on screen. And they really had scenes and moments which really honored different films in the MCU and showed kind of how important certain things were, certain characters, certain relationships, and I really enjoyed seeing everything. This is a fantastic film, and yeah, Avengers Endgame is really, really good, and I'm not really sure how they will end up topping it. But with Kevin Feige at the helm, I have little doubt that they will. I debated a little bit on what the number 2 and number 1 films were going to be. I kind of had my top 5 decided over the last few weeks, just unless something just out of the blue came about and just shook up the whole list. But Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Frozen 2, Avengers Endgame, and then these other top 2 films, they were pretty much set. Not in their spots, but I knew that they were going to be in the top 5 somewhere. It's just a matter of placing them. And so number 2 ended up going to Joker. Now, Joaquin Phoenix does a fantastic job playing Arthur Fleck in this film. He just captures this guy who is so down on his luck and so just beaten down by society and not really being cared about at all. And seeing him be just manipulated and trampled on and made fun of, you can understand why he ends up snapping and eventually becoming the Joker of DC Batman lore. But I really like that while this is set in the DC universe, it's set within Gotham, and eventually there would be a character named Batman, you would presume, that Joker would fight off against, assuming this is the main line character. It does focus on other aspects and doesn't necessarily feel like a DC film, or a comic book movie, which I think is evident by the fact that it's the first rated R film to make over $1 billion worldwide. It deals with mental illness. It has a lot of dark tones to it, and it has this whole theme around kind of the wealthy versus the poor, and just seeing how downtrodden some of those aspects can be at times in regards to the poor versus the wealthy. Yeah, this film is very, very well done, and I would be shocked if this does not at least get a nomination for Best Picture at the Oscars. Joaquin Phoenix does not get a nomination for Best Actor. But yeah, Joker, it's really, really good, and this was almost my number 1 spot. But ultimately, my number 1 choice had to go to a film which I felt like I was both a very well-made film and very good movie. Overall, in general, despite just my preconceived notions about like Avengers and Frozen and stuff, but also one that I just ultimately really, really had a fun time with, despite me not knowing a lot about the subject matter. That's Ford vs. Ferrari. Now, if you had told me when the first trailer came out for this thing that it was going to end up being my number 1 film of 2019, I would have laughed in your face and thought you were crazy and thought it'd be a Frozen 2 or Avengers or something. But no, Ford vs. Ferrari, like I mentioned in my review back in October, I think, when it came out, I just really had a fun time with this movie. And me not being a car person, it's one which I thought I was going to be bored as heck by, and I was entertained through the entirety of it. It's got a really well done story. It focuses on Ford Motors deciding to go to war per se with Ferrari at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, and we have Christian Bale, we have Matt Damon in the 2 lead roles. They are both friends as well as fellow competitors, and they're basically trying to help Ford Motors design the best car possible. You have Christian Bale giving a fantastic performance, and you just have a really well done movie. I can't really say a ton about it because it's just so well done, and yeah, it's one which I really, really enjoyed, and I think that's ultimately what ends up being at the top of these lists, is the film that I enjoyed throughout the course of the year more than any others, but also is one of the best made films of the year. And that goes to Ford vs. Ferrari, one which I had a really, really fun time with, and which I highly recommend if you have the opportunity to check it out. So yeah, those are my picks for the top 10 films of 2019, per my opinion. Like I said, I didn't see every film this year. I did not see The Irishman, I did not see Parasite, I did not see The Farewell, Marriage Story, or a lot of others which are getting like big award hype and top 10 list placements and stuff like that. But yeah, I had a fun time this year overall. I kind of started late with seeing movies, like a large amount of movies. I saw a few within the first few months, but I really didn't start diving into them until the end of May, and I'm glad that I did. I'm glad I dove back into it. I kind of had to take a short break because I just got so wiped out after last year for some reason that I just wanted to stop seeing movies for a while, or as devotedly. So yeah, it was a good year. overall. I'm excited for next year. But let me know what you thought were the top 10 films of 2019. I'd love to see your list down in the comments down below. If you haven't seen as many movies as me, don't feel too bad. Leave what you have seen ranked down below as well. I'd be very curious to see what your picks for the top were, what your least favorite ones were. I probably won't do a list for that because I did not see that many bad movies, or ones that I can really say are pure bad movies, so I won't do a list for that. But yeah, I'd be very curious to see what your thoughts on those are. I'll also be doing top 10 lists for the fall anime season, which is basically wrapping up now, as well as the top 10 anime of 2019. And then I already did a top 10 video games list a couple weeks ago, so that's also on the channel. I'll link to it at the end of this video. And yeah, I'll also probably do a most anticipated things of 2020 video as well. So yeah, keep on watching. I appreciate your subscription and viewing and everything. And till next time, keep on watching.